what's the unfair advantage that St. Louis presents to help them grow their business.
We started feeling that sense of belonging.
He described it as one of the great experiences of his life.
Today on Spotlight, the first president to fly in an airplane was no longer in office, but it happened in St. Louis. Plus, a SLU study that's the first of its kind, why researchers recruited youth football coaches and how they hope to prevent injuries. And then helping students gain independence through academics and vocational experiences. But first, a nonprofit that helps startups build up the St. Louis area. It's Sunday and you're watching the multiple Emmy Award-winning Spotlight.
In 2012, visionary St. Louis leaders launched an innovative program to help our city attract and fund startup companies. Known as Arch Grants, the program works with startup companies that relocate here and compete for venture capital funding. Many of these companies are becoming influential leaders in the growth of St. Louis. Arch Grants is impacting the landscape of the St. Louis economy and our entrepreneurial ecosystem through diversity, equity, and inclusion. Arch Grants has funded more than 200 companies, many of which have made their homes here in St. Louis permanently. Nearly 70% are led by a woman, a person of color, or an immigrant. After 5 years as Director of Development and Operations at Arch Grants, Gabe Angeri assumes the chair of Executive Director. He's in charge of continuing to build on the nonprofit's mission of entrepreneurship and inclusion.
Arch Grants is a 501c3 nonprofit, the first of its kind in the country that provides non-dilutive funding to early-stage ventures in exchange for a one-year commitment to headquarter in the city of St. Louis. So we've been at this about 10 years now, just over a decade, and we funded over 230 companies with these non-dilutive funding awards to great positive effect in the St. Louis community.
Now, non-diluted means what?
Non-dilutive means we don't take any equity in the companies, so we do not have a financial ROI. Our ROI is the economic impact that these companies generate in the city and region of St. Louis.
How does Arch Grants differ from what's offered by other communities around the country?
So Arch Grants has a very unique model. We go out and recruit startups from around the country and from the St. Louis community to apply for our one-year program that comes with $75,000 to $100,000 in non-dilutive funding. Our return on investment is the economic impact that these companies generate in the St. Louis region. We seek to provide a mechanism that these companies can tap into where they don't have to come to an investment firm, they don't have to come to a private shareholder to ask for help. They're coming to a nonprofit that really only cares about their growth in St. Louis. So we bend over backwards to try to produce that value for them and connect them with the right folks in the St. Louis community and regionally, nationally to drive whatever their growth objectives are.
You're interested in companies that are doing very good things, but you're really more interested in what those things can do for St. Louis.
Absolutely. So we're looking for companies that can create that economic impact in the St. Louis community. So creating jobs, paying sustainable high wages to their teams in St. Louis, creating solutions that can be deployed in St. Louis for the benefit of our community. And then we're looking for companies that can leverage the assets that we already have here to spark their growth. We ask these startups to articulate why St. Louis is the best place to grow their business. And that goes for the companies that are already in St. Louis and the many companies that apply from outside of St. Louis and around the world. How their company will benefit from being in St. Louis, what's unique, what's the unfair advantage that St. Louis presents to help them grow their business.
Gabe, thank you for taking the time away from your business here and explaining it to people. Appreciate it, and much luck to you. Keep up those founders and bringing business and jobs and money to St. Louis.
Appreciate that, Dennis.
On November 9th, Arch Grants awarded their 2023 cohort of 22 startups with over $1.8 million in non-dilutive grants. Watch the Nexus Gala as well as Gabe's full interview at hecmedia.org.
Go to hecmedia.org for the arts and authors,
Completely accidental because I never set out to write a book.
science and history, culture and community,
It's considered to be the oldest organic farm west of the Mississippi.
education, films,
Finding the coin places the site firmly in the 13th century.
What's happening now around St. Louis and more. See for yourself at hecmedia.org.
History Spotlight, brought to you by HEC Media and the Missouri Historical Society.
Hello, I'm Dr. Jody Sowell, president of the Missouri Historical Society in St. Louis, and this is History Spotlight. The first president to fly in an airplane was no longer in office when he took his first flight in St. Louis. Public historian Adam Kloppe tells us who it was and how it almost went horribly wrong.
So today, I think it's really hard for us to imagine the presidency without some of like the trappings of what is around the presidency, right? You think about Air Force One, and that is something that obviously was created much after the presidency, and St. Louis has a key role to play in the history of presidential flight. In 1910, Teddy Roosevelt, he's visiting the state of Missouri, and he's no longer the president. He had been replaced by William Howard Taft just a few years before, but he's still an incredibly powerful political figure in the United States. There's a lot of people that are seeking his endorsement. So in October of 1910, he's in Missouri, and he's here to, stump for other Republicans in the state. And he stops in St. Louis. He stops at a place called Kinloch Field, an aviation field, and he's stumping for various political causes. And one of the pilots who operates out of Kinloch Field approaches Teddy Roosevelt, and he asks the president, hey, would you like to go up in a plane? And this was not an approved thing. It's not like this went through many aides and went through all the testing and stuff. It was just a pilot who asked Roosevelt if he wanted to go. And Roosevelt, to the surprise of his aides, says, yeah, I'll go up. And before they can stop him, he's boarding Archibald Hoxie's Wright Flyer, and he's getting ready to go up into the air. And you gotta understand, this is incredibly dangerous. This is in the first 10 years of flight. There's not safety standards. Planes are crashing all the time. Pilots are getting killed or injured. In fact, this pilot, Archibald Hoxie, he gets killed just a few months after this in a plane crash. But he takes off with Roosevelt in the plane. They're up in the air for 3.5 minutes. And Hoxie knows he has some precious cargo on board, right? So he stays pretty low. He doesn't do crazy tricks. He sort of dips and dives a few times. But they do court disaster in the air. At one point, Roosevelt starts waving to the crowd below, and he almost hits an exhaust cord. And if he had hit that and tripped it, the engine would have died and the plane would have crashed. Hoxie sort of had to yell at him over the engine. He's like, please don't wave. But they land safely, and a reporter goes up and asks President Roosevelt, how was that experience? And he described it as one of the great experiences of his entire life. He was really taken with it. But Roosevelt is sort of an anomaly here. The first sitting president doesn't take a flight until FDR in the 1930s, and the president doesn't get a plane with his own call signal until 1953. That's when it's called Air Force One.
Next week on History Spotlight, how St. Louisans were once able to walk across the Mississippi River.
To learn more about the Missouri Historical Society, visit mohistory.org. Scan the QR code on your screen to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram.
Small towns to big city communities. They rally behind their high school football teams. Under those Friday night lights, the energy on the field and in the stands runs high. It's high impact with a high risk for injuries.
Injury risk in football is very high.
Dr. Olu Owaye is the director of the Translational Sports Injury Prevention Lab at St. Louis University, and that risk of injury is substantial across youth sports.
Right now, we know from research that ACL injuries and ankle sprains are the top on the list. The joint injuries, very devastating injuries, are on top of the list. We also have hamstring strains, also on top of the list. So if you put those three together, I think that's a huge, huge problem. I mean, we can talk about the consequences of an ACL injury for the next 30 minutes.
SLU researchers say structured exercise-based interventions, such as neuromuscular training warm-up programs, can reduce injuries by about 60% across youth team sports, and they are underused by coaches.
Sports with the highest risk of injury, you talk about basketball, soccer, football, and volleyball. Football is like on top of the list.
He says that most middle and high school coaches don't know enough about injury prevention.
Understanding the sport and doing the right movements, having the right techniques, making sure they avoid retraining errors, managing recovery.
So Dr. Olu Owoye is the project lead of a new clinical trial enrolling high school and club football coaches in Missouri to increase their knowledge of injuries and how to prevent them. It's called the MAP for Coaches Project. MAP stands for Musculoskeletal Athletic Injury Prevention Online Training Course. The goal is to enroll 500 youth football coaches for the pilot project. The idea is that the online training course will enhance a coach's understanding of football injury prevention to muscles, bones, and joints, as well as to enhance their motivation to apply what they learn to warm-ups.
On the best evidence for injury prevention in youth football, having the right warm-up, which we call neuromuscular training exercise, injury prevention warm-ups, before every practice sessions and every game sessions, possibly, to help prevent the injuries in football.
Study participants may be asked to watch a video that's less than 30 minutes, taking a survey before the video, then another survey after.
The intervention group would do all that. The control group will not have the video training before they do their post-survey. And that's how we try to separate the two groups. But they still get to have the training eventually.
So it's a win-win for coaches who join.
To explain to them how they can prevent injuries. And then we lay out all the injury prevention strategies that are out there based on current evidence.
This allows researchers to study if the online video training really works to reduce injuries on the field.
To help us tackle the problem of neuromuscular deficits in young players because they are not well built for the kind of exposure they're having in sports. So we expect them to play at the level of the NFL because people just want people to hit each other and have fun. The audience wants to have fun. But the truth is these kids are still growing. Injury prevention in youth football fill the gap of the deficits that these kids have, and essentially it trains the muscles and the nerves and the brain to communicate efficiently, such that they move in the right way. They improve their local tissue strength to be resilient to impact forces when they play sports.
SLU researchers and collaborators are also planning a Phase 2 clinical trial that will follow coaches into the football season to evaluate if the proper warm-ups were used and if the players' injuries were less. Coaches who are interested in participating in this research study may visit the Map for Coaches website, mapforcoaches.net. The study will eventually recruit coaches in the other 3 sports with high risk for injuries.
What scientists have done is to incorporate specific movement patterns into the program to simulate what they're going to be doing when they start the game or the practice or the scrimmage.
For original programming and award-winning content, explore hecmedia.org. Find all of your favorite genres, including the arts and sciences. Go in-depth with the latest research. Get insight into new technologies. Learn about breakthrough discoveries. Find it all in one place. Explore hecmedia.org.
Marie Dickhouse recently earned a Chancellor's Certificate after studying for 2 years in the Succeed program. Marie never thought she'd be going to college, let alone working toward a degree.
In high school, I wasn't very independent at all. I needed a lot of help on getting my assignments done and all that.
Fast forward 2 years, Marie is pursuing a full college degree. That will take another 2 years. Meanwhile, she is working in the Office of Inclusive Post-Secondary Education. She attributes her success to Succeed, a program for college students at the University of Missouri, St. Louis. The program, celebrating 10 years this year, provides opportunities for college students with intellectual and developmental disabilities.
When I was younger, I was given a lot of hope for students like us, especially when I heard about this program. So I want to be able to help students be able to get jobs, different things like that.
Program Director Dr. Jonathan Lidges says the aim is to encourage and help students become independent through academics, vocational experience, and college life. The ultimate goal is to help them gain full employment. The program has 4 pillars: live, learn, work, and play.
Is a culture shift for the student, but also the employer. So we're spending a lot of time with our employment staff, doing outreach to employers across the United States.
22-year-old Tyler Haynes gained his certificate in 2021. He was also on the basketball team. Tyler's mother, Tanya, works at UMSL. She says he expressed an interest in going to college at an early age.
There was a need for academic support. And so we knew, though, however, with the correct support, adequate support, he could thrive.
Tyler also works for a local recreation center.
I check our equipment, so I use the scan with the barcode on it. It has with the ID on it.
There are other programs like Succeed across the nation. Dr. Lidges says there's a need for more.
Right now, there's about 300 programs in the United States like ours. That really only encompasses about 6% of all colleges and universities.
He adds, a decade ago, Succeed had only 9 graduates. Now there are over 70 grads. Lucy Solomon hopes to get her certificate next year.
I think that people accept me for what I do, how to accomplish things, how I'm very the talented person.
The brothers Lazaroff later on Spotlight.
We are here at the St. Louis Science Center, and this is our Doctor Who exhibit. This exhibit looks at authentic screen-used props from the television series, as well as archival replicas and different materials that illustrate all the wonderful things in Doctor Who. Doctor Who is a sci-fi fantasy epic series that looks at an alien from another planet who uses a fantastic phone box, which is actually a time machine and space machine. So he travels through space and time trying to save the universe. Some people may wonder why the Science Center would have an exhibit of Doctor Who, which is based on pop culture, science fiction, but this is the perfect opportunity for us to reach out to another audience within our community who are interested in popular culture and science fiction. And it's a way to get them in the doors and say, hey, look at this, science is fun, we can connect to Doctor Who. Let's talk about time travel, how it's portrayed in the series, what is it in real life, what are astrophysicists looking at? So we can bridge that gap between science and science fiction to hopefully get people interested and inspired. So this is really exciting for fans because this is the only full-scale screen-used TARDIS on display in North America for public view. And then we have our collection of sonic screwdriver material. So sonic screwdrivers are something that is synonymous with the Doctor and Doctor Who. It's his handy-dandy little tool. You could compare it to a lightsaber from Star Wars that is just there to help him out with any problem he may have. So these are the actual screen-used props and also some archival replicas for those that may not exist anymore or that maybe were not available for display. And then there's artwork that the prop makers, the designers created in order to make these props for a TV show. It's really fascinating to look at this and see their notes and their hand-drawn examples and how they figured out the different engineering challenges to make these. So at the Science Center, we want people to be curious and engaged in science, and we can use the Doctor Who exhibit to do that. This exhibit will be here until March 2024. You can learn more about the Doctor Who exhibit as well as related programming at slsc.org.
HEC Media. Recognized, celebrated, honored time and again for excellence in the industry. Find all of the award-winning content at hecmedia.org.
The Jewish holiday of Hanukkah has its origins in a historical story that there was a Jewish community living under the ancient Greek Assyrian rule, and they wanted the Jews to give up their faith and to assimilate into Hellenistic culture. And a small group of Jews who called themselves the Maccabees fought back against numbers greater than their own, and they were successful.
After the battle was won, the Maccabees went to the temple in Jerusalem to rededicate it and to rekindle the lamp that burns in every Jewish synagogue, known as the Eternal Light. When they arrived at the temple, they found it desecrated, with only enough oil to light the lamp for 1 day. Yet,
the miracle that later was told was that oil that lasted for 8 days. And that's a beautiful story, but it's just a story that was told in order to keep this holiday vivid and real and alive.
similar to the Maccabees and the Hanukkah story, the Nogan family did not have the privilege to celebrate their heritage openly. And so they decided to immigrate to the U.S. from Crimea in 1995.
The decision to immigrate was not simple, of course, but being Jewish in the Soviet Union, that means that you are second-grade citizens because religion was pretty much non-existent. We did not know about any Jewish holidays. Hanukkah was our first Jewish holiday that we encountered here. We started feeling that sense of belonging. It was a sense of tradition that we were always missing.
Like all Jewish holidays, Hanukkah is celebrated with many traditions.
The most ancient and most long-standing traditions of Hanukkah are the simplest: the lighting of the Hanukkah menorah and the telling of the story. Each day of Hanukkah, using the center candle, which is the helper candle, we use that candle each day to light an additional light of the menorah to remind us that the miracle lasted. But it also accomplishes something else, because when we light each night additional lights, we're bringing more and more light into the world. We believe that it is our job as human beings to always work to bring more light. All the other customs, the eating of potato latkes or sufganiyot donuts, the playing of dreidel game, the sharing of gifts, the singing of songs, the gathering together with family and friends, those have kind of been added over the centuries.
And now for the question on many people's minds: why does the date of Hanukkah change every year?
The Jewish calendar is calibrated according to the cycles of the moon. The American calendar follows the sun. So it's not that the date of Hanukkah changes, but the alignment of Hanukkah's fixing in the lunar calendar moves in relationship to the solar calendar.
While some see Hanukkah as 8 nights of gift-giving, in reality it is so much more.
The giving of gifts actually had no historical basis in Hanukkah. When we read the book of Maccabees or the story of Hanukkah in the Talmud, one of the goals of Hanukkah is to counteract this cold, lonely, dark time of year. And so over the centuries, various customs arose.
My favorite part of Hanukkah is opening up all my presents.
Hanukkah means to me spending time with family and appreciating God.
Hanukkah means like a happy time for all of us to like celebrate and relax.
Opening presents and being with my family.
Candles and us crunching away on the yummy latkes.
And for those curious about why Hanukkah has various spellings,
Hanukkah is a Hebrew word. Its authentic spelling is in Hebrew. So in Hebrew it would be Chet, Nun, Kaf, He. The truth is it doesn't matter. Hanukkah by any spelling still means the same thing.
the true definition of Hanukkah is rededication. So not only does Hanukkah represent the rededication of the temple, but
I like to say that Hanukkah is also an annual time when we rededicate ourselves to the core values of our faith.
You can find the stories featured in today's show along with past episodes and more at hecmedia.org/spotlight.
Hi, I'm Jeff Lazaroff.
And I'm David Lazaroff, and we are Brothers Lazaroff.
And we always played music, and I think we started first kind of playing kind of rock and roll together when David was in high school and I had just started into college.
Bob Dylan is still, you know, the aspirational artist, and we love the Grateful Dead, and we love country, all the country and bluegrass stuff and jazz, but we just, you know, have spent 25 years learning more and more about it.
It's been so cold this summer. Hearts frozen blue. walking the streets, looking for heat, hoping to see something in you, my sisters and brothers.
We call what we do roots music, and really the fun part for us is writing in the folk tradition where you trace back and make desperate connections between different types of music to kind of form your own thing. I like to do that in St. Louis, which is great, is there's so many different types of venues here that if we're, get the opportunity to play the bistro, we kind of do like a jazz set. If we're playing something more of like Americana club, we kind of go do like a roots rock set.
The hullabaloo started with Kinky Friedman doing a concert in St. Louis he called his Hanukkah tour.
At a place called Off Broadway here that we love, and we called the owner, Steve Pullman, and said, we want to open for Kinky, and he said, well, he's playing solo, so maybe you guys want to do an after party. And so we're like, an after party? Well, he's doing a Hanukkah tour, so maybe we'll do something Hanukkah-y.
It was kind of just a big party on stage all night, and we just kind of fell into something. It's a kind of a really fun community event, and each year it grows, and it's kind of like a chance for more people to kind of learn about Brothers Lazaroff too. It's fun, it just keeps growing, but it's just like we tribute people that passed that year, and we play this piece called 8 Nights. It's Rabbi Goodman's poetry set to Eastern European music with electronic beats, and it's just a very big hodgepodge of like electro, klezmer, really cool combination of.
Said the angel. Oil is wisdom poured over the head of the priest.
And what we found too is it's, like we enjoy participating in some of the fun rock and roll Christmas shows out there. We found that people from the community, whether they're Jewish or not, love participating in the Hanukkah hubbub, and there really was nothing like that. There was no kind of rock and roll Hanukkah shows, and so it kind of has its own little niche in that area, and we find that everyone likes to eat potato latkes.
I see my light come shining from the west down to the east. Any day now, any day now, I shall be relieved.
Next week, we look back to when temperatures were so low the Mississippi River froze over, plus a nonprofit improving the lives of adults with disabilities. Thanks for watching Spotlight. Join us next Sunday at 9:30 a.m. on KPLR 11.